The alien ship drifted without control, turning slowly in the cold dark. Its hull was torn open in many places, patched with weak metal plates that would not last much longer. Lights inside the ship flickered, then dimmed again. Every system was failing, one by one, like a dying heart losing its rhythm. Inside the command chamber, the crew moved with heavy steps. Their bodies were thin from hunger. Their skin showed marks of long fear and stress. The air smelled sharp and stale. Each breath was a reminder that time was almost gone. Captain Rollith stood near the main console, gripping its edge to stay steady. His eyes were tired, but still sharp. He had seen battles before. He had seen loss. But this was different. This was slow death, stretched across endless space. "We have no fuel," an officer said quietly. "Life support is at 12%. Another voice followed. "Weapons are offline. Shields are gone. Engines will not respond." The words fell into the room and stayed there. No one argued. No one asked for hope. They had already searched every option. They had already tried everything. Outside the ship, stars burned in silence. No trade lanes passed nearby. No patrols. No friendly worlds. They were lost in a region of space that even maps feared to touch. Captain Rollith closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of his home world, green and calm. He thought of the people waiting there, unaware that this ship would never return. He opened his eyes again. "There is one thing left," he said. The crew looked toward him. Some already knew what he meant. Others feared it. "The old signal," Rollith continued. "The emergency call. The one no one uses anymore." An engineer shook his head slowly. "Captain, that signal is outdated. It is weak. No modern species listens to it." "I know," Rollith replied. "That is why it might still work." The room stayed silent. The signal he spoke of was ancient, older than most spacefaring nations. It came from a time when space was less crowded, when fear ruled travel, and when simple cries for help were the only protection travelers had. Sending it would cost power they could not spare. Sending it would mean admitting defeat. But not sending it meant certain death. Rollith nodded once. "Prepare the signal." The engineer moved to the console. His hands shook as he typed. The system resisted, as if it too believed the effort was useless. After a few seconds, the old transmitter powered on with a weak hum. "What message should we send?" the officer asked. Rollith thought for a moment. Then he answered with honesty. "Help! We are dying." The signal launched into the void, spreading outward in a fading wave. Carried no clear language, no name, no promise. Only need. Only fear. Only the raw truth of lives about to end. When it was done, the transmitter shut down. The lights dimmed again. The crew waited. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Hours crawled by. Oxygen levels dropped further. One crew member collapsed and did not rise again. The ship kept drifting, blind and broken. Rollith sat in his chair and stared at the stars. He did not expect rescue. The signal was a last act, not a real plan. It was something done so history could say they tried. Far away, across distances too great to measure, a quiet human listening post floated near the edge of known space. It was not large. It was not powerful. It existed for one reason only: to listen. Lieutenant Harris sat alone in the control room, sipping cold coffee and watching endless data scroll across his screens. Most days were boring, empty. Silence ruled the void. Humans had learned long ago that silence was dangerous. That was why old channels were never shut down. A small alert blinked on Harris's screen. At first, he thought it was a system error. The signal was wrong, old, broken, something that should not exist anymore. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The pattern repeated. His heart began to beat faster. "That can't be right," he whispered. He ran a deeper scan. The signal was weak, but it was real. Carried distress markers. Panic. A slow countdown hidden in its pulse. Someone was out there. Someone was dying. Harris did not hesitate. He sent the alert up the chain. Protocols activated that had not been used in generations. Ancient files unlocked. Old alarms sounded. Across human space, quiet stations became loud with motion. Admiral Stone received the message while reviewing routine reports. When the alert appeared, she stood at once. "Source?" she asked. "Unknown region," an officer replied. "Far beyond safe lanes." Stone studied the data. She recognized the signal type immediately. "They used the old call," she said softly. "Ma'am?" the officer asked. Stone's jaw tightened. "That means they are desperate." Pause followed. "Could be a trap," someone said. Stone nodded. "Yes, could be." She turned to face the room. "Prepare a response fleet." There were no protests. Human ships began to move. Heavy cruisers, fast escorts, medical vessels. These were not ships built for beauty or peace. They were made to survive storms, impacts, radiation, and war. They were made by a species born on a violent world. On the alien ship, power dropped again. The temperature fell. Crew members wrapped themselves in thin blankets. Breathing became painful. Rollith felt his vision blur. He wondered if the signal had reached anyone at all. Then the sensors flickered. An officer gasped. "Captain, detecting movement." Rollith forced himself to stand. "What kind of movement?" "Multiple mass readings," the officer said. "Large. Very large." Fear spread through the room. Pirates. Hunters. Things worse than death. The stars outside twisted. Space itself seemed to break. Shapes appeared where nothing had been before. Ships. Huge ships. Their hulls were dark, scarred, and heavy with weapons. They did not glide. They pushed through space like fists. The alien crew froze. No known species built vessels like these. A signal reached their bridge. Clear. Strong. Translated words filled the air. "This is the human response fleet." A pause. "We received your SOS." Rollith felt his knees weaken. He grabbed the console to stay upright. Another message followed. "Hold on. Help is coming." For the first time in many cycles, hope entered the room. The crew did not cheer. They were too tired for that. Some cried quietly. Others simply closed their eyes. The human ships moved into position, forming a shield around the broken alien vessel. Far away, threats that had been watching turned away. The void was no longer silent. Humanity had heard the call. The human fleet did not rush forward. It moved with calm purpose, like something that had done this many times before. Smaller ships broke away and scanned the damaged alien vessel from every angle. Data flowed between them in fast, quiet bursts. Inside the alien ship, the crew watched the human ships with a mix of fear and awe. These vessels were close now, so close that surface details could be seen. Deep scars marked their hulls. Plates overlapped plates, layered again and again, as if the ships had been built expecting to be hit. "Those ships look like they have survived wars," one alien whispered. Rollith did not answer. He was watching the way the human ships positioned themselves. They placed their largest hulls between the alien vessel and open space. Not to block escape, but to protect. Human voices filled the bridge again. "Alien vessel, we are matching your drift. Life support teams are standing by." The translation was not perfect, but the meaning was clear. Help was real. A small human ship detached from the fleet and approached slowly. Its engines burned bright and steady, correcting its movement again and again with careful control. "Docking craft inbound," the alien sensor officer reported. Some of the crew stiffened. Boarding was dangerous. Trust was dangerous. Rollith raised a weak hand. "We have no choice," he said. "Lower internal shields. Prepare the airlock." The order was carried out. The ship shuddered as systems adjusted. Far away, aboard the human flagship, Admiral Stone watched the feeds in silence. The alien vessel looked fragile, like it might break apart at any moment. "Life signs?" she asked. "Still present," a medical officer replied. "Barely." Stone nodded. "Then we move now." An officer beside her hesitated. "Admiral, we still don't know who they are. No records. No matches." Stone kept her eyes on the screen. "That doesn't matter." The officer frowned. "Ma'am, Stone spoke evenly. Someone asked for help. That is enough. The docking craft connected with a dull metallic thud. Inside it, human rescue teams check seals and pressure one last time. Their suits were heavy, built to survive extremes. Each movement was practiced and calm. The airlock doors opened. Alien crew members stepped back in fear as the first humans entered. They were taller than expected, broader. Their movements were slow, controlled, and confident, as if the weak gravity meant nothing to them. Lights from human helmets swept across the corridor, revealing cracked walls and exposed wiring. A human voice spoke gently through the translator. Easy. We're here to help. Medical teams moved first. They knelt beside fallen alien crew, scanning, injecting, stabilizing. Tools adjusted themselves in seconds. Human hands worked fast but never rough. Roloth watched as one of his officers, barely breathing, was lifted onto a floating stretcher. You will survive, a human medic said simply. Roloth felt something tighten in his chest. Outside, the human fleet stayed alert. Long-range sensors picked up faint movement at the edge of the system. Shapes lurking, watching. Admiral, a tactical officer said. We may have company. Stone's eyes hardened. Of course we do. On the edge of the void, other ships waited. They were not human. They were scavengers. Raiders who followed distress calls like predators followed blood. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, they saw a wall of human steel. Unidentified vessels, Stone ordered. You are entering a rescue zone. Turn away. There was no reply. The raiders moved closer. Stone gave a single nod. Defensive formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. Human ships adjusted instantly. Shields flared. Weapon systems powered up, but did not yet strike. The alien ship trembled as power surged through it from human cables. Lights brightened for the first time in days. On the bridge, Roloth collapsed into his chair. A human officer stood nearby monitoring readings. You're safe now, the human said. Roloth looked at him. Why? He asked quietly. Why risk this for us? The human considered the question. Because leaving you would be wrong. Outside, a sudden flash lit the darkness. The raiders fired. Human ships responded in a heartbeat. Beams of energy cut through space, precise and controlled. Human vessels moved forward, not back. They placed themselves fully between the attackers and the helpless alien ship. The battle was short, but fierce. Raider ships broke apart under focused fire. Those that survived turned and fled. Human ships did not chase. When silence returned, the fleet held position. On the alien ship, no one spoke. They had watched the battle through external cameras. They had seen humans fight not for territory, not for profit, but to protect strangers. A human voice came over the channel again. Threat neutralized. Rescue operations continuing. Roloth closed his eyes. Somewhere deep inside, something changed. These humans were not like other species. They did not ask who deserved saving. They only asked who needed it. And they had answered. The alien crew was moved slowly and carefully from their dying ship into the human vessels. Human medics guided them through bright corridors filled with steady light and clean air. For many of the aliens, it was the first deep breath they had taken in days. Gravity felt wrong. Pressed down on their bodies, heavy and firm. Some stumbled. Human hands caught them before they fell. Easy, the humans said again and again. Roloth was placed on a medical platform. Soft restraints held him in place, not to trap him, but to keep his weak body still. Machines surrounded him, humming quietly. Lights scanned his skin. Needles delivered warm fluid into his veins. You are safe, a human doctor said. Rest. Roloth wanted to argue. He wanted to stay awake. But his body no longer listened. Darkness pulled him under. When he opened his eyes again, the room was different. Calm. Clean. The pain in his chest was dull now, distant. He realized he was alive. Around him, other alien crew members rested on similar platforms. Some slept. Some stared at the ceiling in disbelief. A transparent wall showed stars outside. The human ship moved smoothly through space, strong and stable. Ralith slowly sat up. The human stood nearby, watching a display. The human noticed Ralith's movement and turned. "You should rest more," the human said. Ralith studied him closely. The human's eyes were forward-facing, sharp, alert. His body was dense with muscle even at rest. "You are human," Ralith said. The human nodded. "Yes." Ralith swallowed. "Your ships, your gravity, your reaction speed. You come from a heavy world." The human allowed a small smile. "Very heavy." Ralith looked away, thinking. Most species avoid such worlds. They break bodies. They shorten lives. "We didn't have that choice," the human replied. "It was our home." Silence followed. Not uncomfortable, just quiet. Across the ship, alien crew members were being fed carefully measured nutrients. Human systems adjusted mixtures again and again, learning fast. Some aliens cried while eating. Others laughed softly, unable to stop themselves. A young alien approached Ralith's platform. "Captain, they saved all of us." Ralith nodded. "I know, but they did not ask for payment," the alien continued. "They did not demand answers." Ralith watched humans move through the medical bay. They worked with speed and focus, but without anger or fear. "They did not ask because they did not need a reason," Ralith said. Elsewhere on the ship, Admiral Stone met with her officers. A display showed the alien vessel now secured and powered down, beyond saving. "We can't repair their ship," an engineer said. "The damage is too deep." Stone nodded. "Then we carry them." "To where?" an officer asked. Stone looked at a star map filled with unknown regions. "Wherever they call home." Pause followed. "That could take us far beyond our borders," someone said. Stone did not look away from the map. "Then we will go far." On the edge of the medical bay, Ralith stood with help from a human medic. His legs shook under the heavy gravity, but he remained standing. He looked at the human ship again. Thick walls, reinforced doors, redundant systems layered upon systems. "You build as if you expect failure," Ralith said. The medic shook his head. "We build because we expect survival." That answer stayed with Ralith. Later, as the human fleet prepared to move, a message was broadcast to all ships. "Jump in 30 seconds." The alien crew felt the shift as space folded. Fear returned for a moment. Then it passed. The jump was smooth, controlled, impossible by alien standards. As the fleet traveled, long-range sensors detected movement again. Distant, curious, watching. Other species had noticed. Word was spreading. An unknown ship had sent an SOS into forbidden space. Humans had answered, and they had not come alone. Ralith stood at the viewing window, supported by a human officer. He watched stars slide past and felt something new rise inside him. Not fear, not relief, respect. The universe was dangerous, cold, unfair. But now Ralith knew something important. If you cried out into the void, and humans heard you, the void would answer back with fire, steel, and mercy. And that truth would not stay secret for long. The human fleet did not slow down as it moved through unknown space. Sensors reached far ahead, searching for danger. Every ship stayed in formation, each one watching the others. This was not a group of explorers wandering blindly. This was a force that expected trouble and planned for it. Ralith spent most of his time near the observation deck. His strength was returning slowly. Human gravity was still heavy, but he learned to endure it, just as the humans did. He watched them train even while traveling. Crews ran drills, repaired damage, and tested weapons as if battle could come at any moment. "Is it always like this?" Ralith asked one of the officers. The human nodded. "It has to be." As they moved deeper into uncharted space, warnings began to appear. Distorted signals, broken beacons, scars of old battles drifting between stars. This region was hunted. The fleet's sensors picked up multiple contacts at once. Not raiders this time, but organized ships. Larger, heavier, armed for capture, not rescue. Admiral Stone studied the display. They've been waiting for something to fall into their nets, she said. The alien ships slowed their approach, spreading out. They did not attack right away. They circled, watching the human formation. A message arrived. Cold. Direct. Identify yourselves. Surrender the rescued vessel. Stone did not raise her voice when she answered. Negative. We are under humanitarian operation. Withdraw. The reply came fast. This space belongs to us. Stone folded her hands behind her back. It doesn't belong to anyone. The enemy ships moved closer. Human weapons powered up again, but no one fired. The fleet held its ground, shielding the alien survivors at its center. Raloth watched the display with growing dread. They outnumber you, he said quietly. Stone nodded. Yes. Then why do you stay? Raloth asked. Stone met his eyes. Because leaving you would be wrong. The enemy fired first. Space lit up with streaks of energy and metal. Human shields flared bright under impact. Several ships took hits that would have crippled alien vessels. Human ships did not retreat. They advanced. Cruisers surged forward, drawing fire away from the center. Smaller escort ships darted between enemy lines, striking engines and weapons with precise shots. The battle spread across the system. Raloth watched in silence as human ships took damage and kept fighting. Hull breaches sealed. Crews rerouted power. Injured humans stayed at their stations. Why do they keep moving forward? An alien whispered. Because that's how they survive, a human officer replied. One enemy ship tried to break through, aiming directly for the transport carrying the alien crew. It never reached them. A human cruiser moved into its path and absorbed the attack. The shields collapsed. The hull burned. But it stayed in place. Human weapons fired at close range. The enemy ship shattered. Cheers did not follow. Humans returned to work immediately. The remaining hostile ships hesitated. Then they fled. Silence fell again. Human ships regrouped. Damage reports flowed in. Some vessels were badly hurt, but none were lost. Medics rushed to treat the wounded. Engineers sealed wounds in metal and wire. Raloth felt something heavy settle in his chest. These humans had taken risks that no other species would. They had fought a stronger enemy without hesitation. For strangers. Later, as repairs continued, Raloth spoke with Admiral Stone again. You could have left us, he said. No one would have blamed you. Stone looked tired now. We would have blamed ourselves. The fleet resumed its course. Far away, hidden sensors watched them go. Messages were sent through quiet channels. Stories began to form. Deathworlders. A species that lived on a brutal world. A species that did not abandon the weak. Raloth looked out at the stars once more. He understood now that the universe had made a mistake. It had believed humans would break. Instead, they had learned how to stand. And they were still standing. Time passed as the human fleet continued its journey. Repairs were completed. Wounded humans returned to duty. The alien crew grew stronger with each day. What once felt impossible slowly became routine. Raloth walked the corridors without help now. The gravity no longer crushed him. His muscles ached, but he welcomed the pain. It meant he was alive. He watched humans at work. They trained even after battles. They studied mistakes. They argued, adjusted, and improved. Failure was not shameful to them. It was a lesson. In one hangar, Raloth observed human soldiers practicing in heavy armor. They moved with speed and balance that seemed unreal. The armor was thick, scarred, and clearly used many times. You train as if peace does not exist, Raloth said to the officer beside him. The officer shrugged. Peace is just a pause. Raloth thought about that. In the medical bays, human doctors continued to study alien biology. They shared data freely, adapting treatments and learning limits. Nothing was hidden. Nothing was kept secret. You trust us, Raloth said to a human medic. The medic smiled. Trust is faster than fear. As the fleet neared alien space, communication attempts increased. Raloth's people had finally detected the human vessels. Fear spread at first. Unknown ships. heavy weapons, a formation built for war. Raloth was given access to a transmitter. His image appeared across his home world's networks. He looked thinner than before, marked by exhaustion, but alive. "I was rescued," he said simply, "by humans." The reaction was immediate. Shock, doubt, questions. "They crossed forbidden space," Raloth continued. "They fought to protect us. They asked for nothing." On the human flagship, Admiral Stone watched the broadcast in silence. "Do you fear how they will see us?" an officer asked. Stone shook her head. "We didn't come to be liked." The fleet slowed as it approached alien territory. Defense stations powered up but did not fire. Confusion ruled instead of anger. Raloth stood beside Stone on the bridge. "Some will fear you," he warned. Stone nodded. "They already do." Alien escorts finally approached, cautious and tense. Weapons remained powered, but pointed away. A message came through. "Human fleet, state your intent." Stone answered calmly. "We are returning survivors." Silence followed. Then the alien escort moved aside. The human fleet passed through. On the alien home world, millions watched as human ships descended into orbit. They were massive, scarred, alive with power. Human shuttles carried the rescued crew home. Families wept. Leaders bowed. Medics rushed forward. Raloth stepped onto his world again and felt lightness beneath his feet. He turned back to look at the humans. "They did not have to do this," he said to his people. But they did. The humans did not stay long. Supplies were shared. Data exchanged. Wounded aliens were checked one final time. No demands were made. As the human fleet prepared to leave, Raloth sent one final message. "You answered a call meant to disappear," he said. "You changed more than our fate." Stone responded with only a nod. The human ships turned away and vanished into folded space. Across the galaxy, the story spread faster than light. A weak SOS had been heard, not by gods, but by Deathworlders who refused to look away. And every species listening understood one thing. Humanity was not gentle, but it was just. The story did not stay on one world. It moved through trade routes and data streams, carried by merchants, pilots, and diplomats. Each retelling added small details, but the truth remained the same. A dying ship had cried out into the void. Humans had answered. At first, many species dismissed it. They said it was luck. They said the humans wanted influence. They said it was a single act, not a pattern. Then more signals were answered. A mining station lost in a radiation storm was rescued by human ships that ignored safety limits. A convoy trapped by gravity shear was pulled free by human engines pushed far past design limits. Each time, humans arrived without warning and left without demands. Fear began to mix with respect. In councils across the galaxy, the word Deathworlder was spoken more often. It was no longer an insult. It became a description of what humans were shaped by. High gravity, violent weather, endless competition for survival. A species that evolved not to avoid danger, but to endure it. Raloth was called to speak before the Galactic Assembly. The chamber was vast, filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. He stood alone at the center. "They are not heroes," he said. "They are not saviors." Murmurs spread. "They are responders," Raloth continued. "They hear suffering, and they move." One delegate asked, "What do they want in return?" Raloth shook his head. "Nothing." The silence that followed was heavy. That answer frightened many more than any demand would have. Human envoys did not appear at first. They did not rush to explain themselves. They did not defend their actions. They continued listening. In human space, the old receivers stayed active. Stations were repaired, expanded, and staffed. Young officers were trained to watch quiet channels others ignored. "Why do we still listen?" one trainee asked. A veteran officer answered, "Because someday, that call might be ours." Not all reactions were peaceful. Some powers began to test humanity. Borders were pushed. Ships were challenged. Warnings were sent. Human responses were measured and firm. They did not seek conflict, but they did not retreat. Pattern became clear. Humans did not expand by conquest. They expanded by presence. When danger appeared, they stood in its path. When suffering called out, they answered. Ralith watched these events from afar. He realized the galaxy was changing, not through war, but through expectation. Now, when ships traveled dangerous routes, they carried old emergency codes again. Not because they believed they would be saved, but because they knew someone might listen. The universe had always been silent and cruel. Now it was silent and watched. And somewhere in that silence, humanity waited. Not as rulers, not as gods, but as the ones who answered. And that truth spread faster than fear ever had. The old listening post still floated at the edge of human space. It had been upgraded since the first SOS. New systems had been added. Stronger sensors, faster relays. But the heart of the station remained the same. It listened. Lieutenant Harris stood in the control room again, older now with a few more lines on his face. The screens before him glowed softly. Most of them showed nothing. Silence ruled the void. That silence no longer felt empty. Across the galaxy, ships traveled with a small but powerful hope. Old emergency channels were monitored again. Distress codes were shared freely, not hidden or locked behind politics. Some calls were false. Some were traps. Humans answered anyway. Not blindly, not foolishly, but with preparation, caution, and resolve. Because that was the rule humanity had chosen. On Earth, children learned about the stars not as unreachable lights, but as places where someone might need help. Stories were told of rescue fleets, not to praise war, but to explain responsibility. Survival had taught humans a simple lesson. If you can help, you do. Ralith stood on his home world, watching the sky. He knew that somewhere beyond the stars, human ships moved quietly, listening. He no longer saw them as Deathworlders alone. He saw them as guardians shaped by hardship. A new signal appeared on Harris's screen. Weak, damaged, old. His hand paused for only a moment before moving. The alert was sent. Across human space, engines warmed. Crews woke. Ships turned. No speeches were made. No praise was expected. Because this was not heroism. This was habit. The universe was still dangerous. Still unfair. Still vast and cold. But now, when a voice cried out into the void, it was not alone. Somewhere Deathworlders heard it. And they were already on the way.